Welcome to another edition of Through My Lens. I'm your host, Karen Jackson, and the Through My Lens podcast and community is an opportunity for us to come together to talk about and to learn from other individuals, professionals, and leaders who have not let their setback and circumstances define who they are and what they can accomplish. Today's special guest, she has a very special story, and that's no other than our own Dr. Rhonda Smith. She is a five-time author. She is a woman of impact, and most importantly, she is a woman of God. So thank you so much, Dr. Rhonda, for being with us.
Thank you, Karen, for having me.
Great, great. So tell our audience a little bit about who Dr. Rhonda Smith is.
Okay, first of all, I want them to know that I'm a child of God because that's what's important to me. I'm also an author, like you said. I'm a doctor of naturopathy. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm also a certified behavior specialist. So, what I do is addiction. I do love addiction and I do drug addiction, and they're both closely related because a lot of times when somebody's in love, they go through withdrawals like they do with drugs. So basically, that is what I do. I teach and I write scripts for people who need something to calm them down and get through the phase of addiction.
Wow, wow. That that's an interesting thing that you what you just said is that a lot of times addiction and love it's kind of like the same chemicals is what you're
Mhm.
saying that you
Right.
exert the same chemicals.
Right, yeah, because when you're in love with somebody in the first stage, that dopamine is being released and it feels so good, and you're like, oh, this is great. The same thing happens with a drug. When somebody does that drug, that dopamine is released also, and they call it the love drug. What a lot of people don't realize is that once you fall in love and then something happens and it becomes toxic, you will do a drug to numb that feeling. So then you get addicted to the drug, and then you get addicted to the person that you're with. A lot of times I will write something called Suboxone, which blocks the brain from wanting it, but I can't write a Bob, a Larry, or a Joe. So they stay connected with those people because they don't want to let them go. You have to go through the pain to even heal, to get to
Wow.
your divine purpose.
Wow. So tell us about how did you even get involved in
Ooh.
this type of work?
Well, first of all, I went through those relationships myself, didn't have a clue what they were about. And people have to realize that narcissists are totally different. I'm talking about a pathological narcissist, one that comes to kill, steal, and destroy. There's different levels, and in my book, I talk about that so people know that. But I was in relationships with those type of people and didn't really realize it until I started studying it. I went through a 13-year divorce. When I tell you that, I just finished another book, Karen, which is my sixth book called Resilient, Restored, and Renewed. And I talk about that in that. So after I started realizing what this was about, I started studying it deeper, and I studied with Ross Rosenberg, who is a psychotherapist out of Chicago. After I started studying it and realizing, okay, God, you got to help me with this because I can't do it myself. Teach me how to help me get through it and help others. And so at the prison where I worked, so many women were coming to my office for checkups, but talking about these relationships. They couldn't understand why they were still in love and connected to this person. So I went even deeper to teach them, but even teaching them helped me because the Lord said, you teach and I'll reach. I can teach you, but if you don't let God reach you, it's not going to happen. So that's really how I got involved with it. After I realized what I was in, I haven't dated. I'm waiting for my Boaz. I
Oh,
think marriage is a wonderful thing, but it has to be with the right person.
absolutely.
Brokenness attracts brokenness, and I was broken. So I was attracted to brokenness. But now I'm waiting for my wholeness. I'm whole. I'm waiting for my whole man to come. Not a
Oh,
half man, not a broken man, but a whole man.
there you go. Absolutely.
So that's
Amen
how I
to
really
that.
got into it. And there's so many women out here, Karen, that are hurting and want help but don't know what to do. Um,
Mhm.
Narcissistic abuse day is really huge now, and they're teaching people all over the world about it because it's real. June 1st, 2016 is when it started, so it's getting ready to come up. And they teach people all over the world about this silent epidemic that is destroying people's lives. People are embarrassed, they're ashamed because they don't have a clue what's going on. But it's important that we have to teach each other as sisters and some brothers too, because I have
Amen.
male clients also. But it's important to teach each other about that.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think it's important for men and women to,
Hmm.
be exposed to this type of information, because at the end of the day, we build the families, we create the families that
Absolutely.
build the
Absolutely.
communities and live in the communities. So
That's
it's
right.
all connected.
That's right. And they learn from us. Children
Absolutely.
learn from us. We can't say, don't do this, and we show them what to do all their lives. They do what they know. It's like, this is what I've seen and this is what I do. And that's the sad part. And if
That
we don't do something, it's getting worse and worse.
it is. It is unfortunate. That's a
Mm.
whole nother session and a podcast, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, but I want to, before we go into a little bit more of some of the things I wanted to talk about today, one of the things that really interests me, what you just said, was that you talk about this whole thing about love and loving yourself. And, no matter, there's so many studies, whether you're talking about just in confidence in yourself, when you talk about how you feel about yourself and success, achieving your goals, healthy relationships, all of that is intertwined. And
Yes.
so, talk to us a little bit more about why that is so important.
Well, first of all, I think that God gave us love. He wants us to love one another. But what people don't realize that this Jezebel spirit that's in the Bible is running around today, which is the narcissistic spirit. So we think we love ourselves and we really don't. Your parents don't grow up saying that they hate you. Your parents do what they're taught. So a lot of times, if you don't feel validated, if your parent never said you're so beautiful or you're so smart or you're going to be the best this or that, then you don't really know that. So your core is not developed divinely like it should be. As you get older, you fall into those traps of, this is what I've always saw, so this is what I thought. And even in my relationships, I would say, well, do he realize who I am? He can't treat me like that. And God said, do you know who you are? So I had to really go back, dig deep. It's not about what you have. It's not about what you look like. It's your core. How do you feel about yourself? So then I had to dig deep and say, wow, this is unreal. I had to go through a total transformation to understand that nobody can treat me any kind of way that's not right. You can't cheat on me. I'm not going to sit there and wait for you to come back around like most people do. But when you don't know who you are, you will do that. So that's why in my book, I teach about self-esteem, self-worth, self-love, because if you don't learn those things, you will accept anything.
Amen. And and as we are, you and I always talk about, when you know who you are and who you are in Christ,
That's right. That's
you,
the most important thing right there.
you
Once
move
you know that, you're good.
you move differently.
You do.
You,
And you have a discerning spirit then that God has given.
uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
things are going to come. It's not like we're not challenged or things don't happen, but you
Absolutely. And it's
know,
not like we're not gonna make mistakes.
that's right. But we're holding on to that word, and God will let us know, hey, go this way, go that way. When before, if you don't know that, you're all over the place. I was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, because I heard you mention that you talk about the you work in a prison. So is that where you do a lot of this work right now? Is doing this?
So I used to work at Dayton Correctional Institution for Women. I left there 8 years ago because I worked in infirmary, seeing them for chronic care, blood pressures, whatever they need, PAPs. But so many of them, Karen, was coming in there handcuffed on drugs and crying because this guy said, do this bid and I got you. He never showed up, or she heard he was out there having a baby with someone else. So the Lord said, I need you to leave here and develop divine core transformation. I was scared to death. Leave here. I already had my business part-time, but not full-time. So I was really afraid, but he said, do you trust me? And I trusted him. So I left there to develop this program for those women because a lot of them are coming out in the same relationships because they don't even understand what's going on. The first class I gave there was so packed and women were in there crying, said, oh my God, why did somebody tell me this? I have a client now that was there then, Jennifer Rice, who I talk about because she does Divine Table Talk with me, and she's also going to be at the Awakening. She is so thankful. She said, if I hadn't have learned this, I'd be right back with this gentleman that I was with when I left. Because we don't know what this thing is. We think it's love because we're sick when we're not with them. So we must be in love with them. But no, we have to teach people what it is. So I'm not at the prison now, but I go back a lot to the reentry fairs. I'm trying to get in there to get my program. And the women that are coming out, I'm reaching them so they don't go back in for the same thing.
Okay. So, talk to us a little bit about the divine core transformation. What does that really mean, and what all is involved in that?
Okay. So with divine core transformation, the Lord told me that you have to have a heavenly divine core transformation. That means your whole body, your soul, mind, heart, and soul. Because if you don't, you won't change. So what I do with that is, even though I can write this medication, my program is different because I get this book and I sit down with them and said, let's dig deep. Let's find out why you're addicted to toxic relationships or why you're addicted to drugs, because there's something there. Nobody graduates from school saying, I'm going to be an addict. I'm going to be in love with a toxic person. Nobody does. So we dig deep, get to the childhood, dig up the root. We stop the shame, because you can't say, well, my parent did it, so I'm this way. We have to stop the shame and the blame and change the game so that our new generation can be changed. So we dig to the core. We find out why we are this way, and then we start working on that day by day. It's a progress. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a progress.
Well, transformation is a process, right?
Yes, it is.
When you think
Yes.
about the butterfly, it
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
transformation. And I couldn't help but bring up about the butterfly, because you got to tell the audience a little bit about the butterfly and its significance to your project.
Well, the butterfly, I love the butterfly because when you start flying, and I tell my clients, I said, okay, so, when you're in this cocoon and it's dark and it's gooey and it's sticky, we get used to our abnormal behavior. Our abnormal behavior becomes our normal. So when you look out from that cocoon and that light hits your eye, you want to go back in because it don't feel good. But if you're going to push through the pain, you get out, you see that, you may see the sun, you may start crawling on your belly. Then you may start walking. Then you may start running, and then you fly, because now you have transformed into God who God wanted you to be, your divine purpose. But you got to go through the pain to even get through. A lot of us stop because it hurts too bad. But you're going to stay in pain the rest of your life. If you stay with a toxic person, you're spiritually dead. So you might as well go through the pain, fly, and be who you were meant to be.
Absolutely. And I heard someone say, I can't remember who said this, but they were speaking about just about that, about avoiding the pain, but what is the overall cost that you pay
Mhm.
for avoiding that pain? There's the cost is so much higher
Yes,
than
it
just
is.
taking the time to.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. It
Yeah,
is.
so I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned about your project coming up, the awakening. So I know that is somehow connected to this workbook that you have developed. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay. So the awakening is a project that I'm doing, and what it is people who have went through their transformation, who has went through the pain, who wants to talk about it and have a freedom celebration. So the awakening is going to have people on there talking about their addiction. I have two couples on there who are married now, so they talk about their transformation with God. One talks about how she was with a narcissist that drove her nuts, but she went through the transformation of the pain. The other one was an addict who went through the transformation of the pain. I have one that was trafficked, sold into traffic at 3. These stories, and then I have one that was in prison. They're telling their stories so people know they're not alone, but you can get through this. So we're going to celebrate. This is my first nonprofit. I'm going to continue to do it because this is what God has me to do. I have people lined up wanting to tell their stories to help people. Until you awaken into who God has want you to be and go through that transformation, you're walking dead. You're not spiritually alive. You can't be. So that's what the awakening is truly about. And we're going to have a band. We're going to have music. We're going to celebrate freedom by
That's
sharing our stories.
that is awesome. That is awesome. And I am so excited because so the event on June 17th, the awakening, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is also really a fundraiser for your
Absolutely.
nonprofit and
Yes.
for your workbook. So
Right.
tell us a little bit about the workbook and
Okay. Yeah.
and how people can take advantage of that. Like you said,
Okay.
this is information that everyone could take.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Yeah. So the workbook is the workbook that I wrote a while ago. And God told me, don't publish it. I want you to have someone publish it. And I thought, who's going to publish this workbook? He says, I want you to call it was these all these different religious organizations. And I ended up with Covenant. Didn't know why until later. Covenant accepted my book like that. It was two of them. So with that workbook, I wrote the book Recognizing the Love Trap, and clients were like, well, how do I get there? What do I do? So my workbook breaks it down into 12 chapters of how to do this. When I was at the prison on Tuesday, these women were like, I need a book. I need a book. And I know that I want to give each one of them a book. I have gave the case managers a book, but it doesn't get around to everyone. So this nonprofit is to get books into the prison so that these women can have one. Even if I have to put some in the library, they could just take them out each time. But the fundraiser is to get the books in there so that we can help these women awaken to their true destiny so they can understand the work they need to do, not to go back to the same behaviors they went in for.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Mhm.
So, if individuals or organizations would like to participate or be involved in the awakening, how can they do that?
Well, on my Facebook, I have the pamphlet on there that they can go into, and they also can go to my website, thedivinetransformation.org. It has information on there too. And my Facebook is Dr. Rhonda Smith.
Okay, and we'll definitely put that information in the body of the
Okay.
video.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that.
Sure, sure. So, Dr. Rhonda, tell me, inspires you to continue to write these books and workshops and
Well, I tell you what, Karen, there's nothing I wanted to do. Because when I went into doing, I just wanted to see my clients and say, all right, you have a good day. See you next week. Follow them up for 2 weeks. But going into the prison and seeing, these are my sisters. This could be my mother, my aunt, anybody. Watching these women come into that prison, crying to me, wanting help, not understanding what has happened to them. That was my inspiration. Also, knowing that I had been in toxic relationships, I could have been behind those bars too. I'm only saved by grace. So, my inspiration is to get every sister. I want this to go global to all the prisons and not only inside the prisons. We're in prison outside. Our minds are incarcerated in these relationships out here too. We're just ashamed. I have so many women now that come to me in my group and we're studying together. And I'm going to start a group called My Sisters Keepers. We need to help each other, not talk about each other. We don't
and
even know why we do. So when we talk about each other, it makes us even more shame. We got to get out there on the line and say, hey, this is what it's about. Let's come into this sisterhood and help change our minds, renew our minds. So
absolutely.
that's my inspiration, and that's why I'll do it all. And I'll never stop. I love what I do. I really do.
That's great. I can tell. I can see I see your face light up when
I do.
you talk about it. Absolutely.
Especially when you see somebody say, oh my God, that's what I'm going through. And then when you see them do the work, it's unreal.
It
It
is.
is. Now, everybody does it,
Correct.
because a lot of people don't want to go through that pain and they don't want to be lonely. You have to separate in order to see what God has for you. And a lot of people don't want to separate.
Yes, yes. It's hard work.
Yes, it is. But it's worth it.
It is indeed worth it for sure.
It is.
Well,
It is.
Dr. Rhonda, thank you so much for taking the time out, for coming and sharing of your vision, your project. I think it's just absolutely amazing
Thank
how
you.
you have, changed, made your message,
Yeah. Yes. Your
So,
ministry. Yeah. Your ministry
yes,
is
yes,
your
yes.
message. You're absolutely. Your misery is your ministry.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
just wonderful when we can take those hard lessons that God teaches us and turn it
Mhm.
into something positive.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I just thank you so much. And I will say, okay, so it's June 17th,
Hmm.
the awakening, at what time and where,
Okay.
and
So
we'll
it's
put in
June.
the bottom where they can get their tickets.
Okay, June 17th, and it is at Dayton Country Club, and it is from 6 to 10. Eventbrite has tickets. Also, my website has tickets. And my Facebook, you can go in there and there's a little thing you scan, and there's tickets there too.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that
come
sounds
on and have a grand. We're gonna have a good time. We're celebrating freedom because these people, the struggles they went through. When you hear their story, ooh, you're gonna be like, wow, wow, look at God.
absolutely. Well, I'm excited. And you know what we may have to do is before the event, we may have to bring one of those individuals on and
Absolutely.
just give them just a little sample
Okay,
and
that would be
to
great.
know
We
what
can
to
do that.
expect.
We can
Okay.
do that.
Okay. I look forward to that. Well, thank you again so much and continue blessings. And we will continue to be warriors in this fight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen, and thank you for what you do. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. God bless and have a great day.
God bless you. Bye bye.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.